Once again, the taxpayers are being asked to foot the bill for the young congressman from Minnesota. Tonight he leaves for a fashionable hotel in New York, where he will lend his insignificant weight to the current bill on small business.
Thank you, Margaret Selden.
That's only the beginning. You want the rest of it?
Oh, forget it. I was elected despite Margaret Selden of the Minnesota Dispatch. I'm really not interested in anything she has to say.
Mr. Morley.
Let her chop away. It won't do her any good.
There's someone to see you.
Oh, not now, Katie. I've got a plane to catch. This bill is the best thing that ever happened for the small businessman. She was against the Lansing bill and the housing issue. As a member of the opposition, she's been against everything I ever stood for. Oh, but I like to meet that Selden woman and tell her what I think of her.
Why don't you?
What?
She's waiting downstairs.
Are you asking me to go out the back door of my own house?
Exactly. You can't see her anyway, Glen. You do at the airport.
I'll get a later plane.
That's exactly what she wants. You're bound to say something that she can twist around and use against you.
I think Mr. Cooper is right.
Are you sure you can handle her?
With kid gloves. Nothing gets me riled. You know that.
Thanks. I'll call you when I get to New York, kid.
Don't worry about the children. They'll be just fine. Have a nice trip.
Where is the hatchet woman?
Mrs. Selden is in the living room.
You ever see the fangs removed from a snake? What's a charmer at work?
I have asked Mrs. Foster to serve tea.
Perfect. Mrs. Selden, I'm Mr. Cooper. I'm sorry to have kept you waiting.
That's quite all right.
I'm afraid the congressman isn't here.
Yes, I just saw him evacuating. Was he running to his meeting in New York or running away from me?
He just had time to make the plane. I'm his associate. Perhaps I could help you.
Despite our differences of opinion, Congressman Morley does happen to be my representative in Washington. I'd rather speak with him. When do you expect him back?
That's hard to say, Mrs. Selden. And I have no intention of encouraging his return just so that you can continue your irresponsible reporting at his expense.
Obviously, you've not been briefed on the issues involved.
There are no issues involved. The congressman is right.
Mr. Cooper, I cannot argue with a prejudiced man.
Well, I would advise against it. I am prejudiced. Mr. Morley and I have been together for a long time. I know what a fine man he is. Now, I realize that you don't share my opinion, but don't you think you ought to get your facts straight before you attack him?
My facts are straight, Mr. Cooper.
Whatever the issues, Glen Morley is always wrong. But in spite of your snide way of saying things, you cannot turn the voters against him. He's a good man, and they know it. And no amount of fabrication or libel will change that.
Tea is served, Mr. Cooper.
Tea, Mrs. Selden?
You're so hospitable, but no thank you. Perhaps you'll be good enough to see that Mr. Morley gets this.
What is it, a poison pen letter?
A very deserving young man made an application for an appointment to Annapolis. I understand his father is a good friend of your congressman. I was merely doing this as a favor to him. Thank you for your courtesy, Mr. Cooper. Good day.
You certainly were charming.
You think she came here just to deliver this letter, huh?
Probably.
Now, don't kid yourself. She has something on her mind, and I would like to know what it is. You think I was rude, huh?
I certainly do, Mr. Cooper.
Well, I had a right to be, after those things she's printed about Glen.
Oh, if everyone agreed with Mr. Morley, this country would be a very dull place to live.
Well, I wouldn't mind if she only knew what she was talking about. I'll have a cup of that. She is a good-looking woman, isn't she?
She certainly is. And I think it would be wise to make a friend of her.
Out of the question.
I don't think so. Besides, you promised Mr. Morley you'd handle the situation.
I don't understand how such a good-looking woman can be so mixed up.
Well, you could unmix her. Really, Mr. Cooper, you can be quite charming. I'm sure you could win her over.
I wouldn't waste my time. She is a shrew.
It would be better if you were for Mr. Morley than against him.
Now, are you telling me to go back and apologize to that woman?
I am. Why don't you invite her here for dinner?
Never. I have seen the last of Mrs. Eldon, and that is fine.
Yes?
Well, is this Mrs. Eldon's suite?
It is.
These are for her.
Oh. Thank you.
I'm not the delivery boy. Will you tell Mrs. Eldon these are for Mr. Cooper? And I'd like to give them to her myself.
Oh. Come in.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Cooper.
Hope I'm not disturbing.
Not at all. I was just finishing my column. Are those for me?
Sort of a peace offering. I was less than gallant earlier this afternoon.
Perhaps I provoked you. They're lovely. It's a long time since a gentleman's brought me flowers.
That's hard to believe.
You've made your peace, Mr. Cooper. Here, let me take them. You find it interesting?
Couldn't resist the impulse.
Thought it might be another comment on your dear congressman.
Why not? You have been blasting him for the past year. Is that in code?
It happens to be a recipe for chicken tetrazzini.
A recipe? In your column?
Well, many of my readers are much more interested in food than in politics.
How would you like a good Swedish recipe?
You write it down and I'll print it.
That would be irresponsible reporting. You'll have to taste it first.
Are you inviting me to dinner?
I had the strange feeling I just didn't. Do you know how long it's been since I've had dinner alone with a beautiful woman?
Well, I could imagine that a bachelor in a city where the women outnumber the men would have dinner with a different woman every evening.
Not me. As a matter of fact, I was very nervous about your coming here tonight.
But now that I'm here, I'm sure you want to tell me a few things about Congressman Morley and the wonderful job he's been doing. Am I right?
Oh, you're wrong. You're 100% wrong. You know, tonight I'd like to forget about politics and about Glen and about small business, and I'd like to go dancing. Now, I warn you, it's been 20 years since I went dancing, but I understand there's a wonderful orchestra on the roof of your hotel. Do you have the courage to chance it with me?
I'd be delighted. Oh, I left my purse in the living room.
I'll get it for you.
Thank you. What happened?
We're leaving.
Did you look at Mr. Morley's campaign material?
What material?
On the coffee table.
Oh, no, there wasn't time.
Where are you going?
Dancing.
Oh.
Well, never trust a politician.
What have I done?
You told me you couldn't dance. You dance like an angel.
Not when it comes to the bossa nova. I zag when I should zig.
Yes, me too.
And speaking of angels, I'd like to thank you for a lovely evening. Never had a better time.
Thank you.
Can I call you in the morning?
You may.
Good night, Maggie.
Good night. I don't even know your first name.
Well, it's just as well.
Is it one of those Well, I'd like to know it anyway.
Chester?
Good night, Chester.
It's late. I was worried.
There's no need. Everything's fine.
Where have you been all this time?
Right upstairs. Dancing.
Dancing, dinner, flowers. I'd say Mr. Cooper had a crush. I'd also say that Mr. Cooper had an ulterior motive.
What?
Maggie off the clouds. The bill on small business comes up before Congress in just a few days. Now, if someone close to Morley were to charm his way into your heart, it might relieve a lot of attention, don't you think?
Pretty cynical, aren't you?
Perhaps. But that's the way it is in the wicked world of politics.
Do you really believe Mr. Cooper is that calculating?
Yes.
Hail, fair Kate.
Do I dazzle you?
I think it's beautiful.
Now, you were supposed to talk to Mr. Sheldon about Mr. Morley's campaign. Have you?
Not a word.
Why?
Because, my love, there are more marvelous, mysterious things I wish to see.
Do you know what you're saying?
Nay.
Do you know Mr. Morley has been looking for you all morning?
Double nay.
He wants you to airmail him the file on corporate structures immediately.
It shall be done. But first, a most pressing engagement. There was a lover and his life.
Wait.
As all. Why does the world report the Kate of Glen?
Lynn?
Kate like the hazel twig, is straight and slender.
And as brown in hue as the hazelnut.
Dart not scornful glances from those eyes, to whom thy lord, thy king, thy governor.
It bites thy beauty as frost do bite the mead. Taming of the shrew, I played it in school 10 years ago.
So did I. I refuse to say how long. Well, my love.
Hark! Brave warriors, forget not the corporate structures file.
Very well. Here is love.
Goodbye, Mr. Cooper.
Call me Chester.
What's the matter with him?
Why?
He's a whole new head of hair.
I think Mr. Cooper is falling in love.
Is that what love does to you?
Well, I guess it does to some people.
Oh, it's nutty. Have you ever been in love, Kitty?
You're a very nosy young man. Jack. Have you been drinking, Mr. Cooper?
Not a sip, but I'm high as a kite.
Oh, I'd better get you some coffee.
Look. The Bossa Nova. Maggie and I were the best couple on the floor tonight.
Very interesting. But aren't you forgetting something?
Huh.
The small business bill.
The what?
The reason for seeing Mrs. Sheldon. Now, what did she say?
Hey, can you keep a secret? I want to show you something.
A ring.
It's not just an ordinary ring. If Maggie accepts it, she gets a wedding band to go beside it.
You proposed?
Well, not yet. Tomorrow, if I can get up the courage.
Oh, well, it certainly was a whirlwind courtship. Oh, Mr. Morley.
Glen! I could have picked you up at the airport. Why didn't you tell us you were coming?
The communication system between this household and myself has suffered a severe breakdown. What's that on your head?
Here, do you like it?
Stunning. Does Mrs. Selden like it, too?
He knows.
He sure does. How could you two be so naive?
What are you talking about, Glen?
Margaret Selden's column for today. Read it. Still think she's a great girl,
What's wrong?
Mr. Cooper learned about women from Mrs. Selden. Oh, here, perhaps you want to read this, too.
The brightest part of my visit to Washington was my encounter with Congressman Morley's romantic henchman, Mr. Chester Cooper. He wined and dined me and gave me the soft sell on the Morley small business bill. I must say I enjoyed it all except the motive behind it. Sorry, Congressman, you are still 100% wrong. Nice try, gentlemen. Better luck next time. That's terrible.
It certainly is.
I wasn't thinking about you. I was thinking about poor Mr. Cooper.
Can I help you?
Yeah, I'm Katie Holston. I would like to see Mr. Selden, please. It's personal. Come in.
Hello, Miss Holston. The secretary tells me you wish to speak to me. Won't you sit down?
No, thank you. What I have to say is not easy.
Then let me say it for you. Mr. Cooper's been very attentive. Suddenly his interest has waned. It's apparent he's read my column.
He has, and he's very unhappy.
Obviously, Congressman Morley is very unhappy, too. Is that why he sent you?
No one sent me anywhere, Mrs. Selden.
Oh, come now, Miss Holstrom. You're in on our little game of politics and romance. If Mr. Cooper couldn't succeed, why not throw in the reserves? A little woman-to-woman talk?
When you and Mr. Cooper first met, I told him I thought he behaved rudely. But after reading your column, I do not believe he behaved rudely enough. Now, perhaps he means nothing to you, but I watched him fall in love with you.
Oh, really, Miss Holstrom?
Please, let me finish. Last night, Mr. Cooper told me he'd planned to ask you to marry him. He even picked out a ring. You can say this is none of my business, but I must tell you it was a cruel and heartless thing to do. And it is not only Mr. Cooper you're hurting, but Congressman Morley and the American people. You and your convictions. At least you should read what Mr. Morley is trying to do.
We've been together a long time. You can't just up and quit.
There's no choice, Glen. Not after what I've done to you.
Oh, you're exaggerating. Things aren't that bad.
They are? I've embarrassed you.
Forget it.
You know something, Glen? I really thought that she was in love with me.
Mr. Cooper, look, why don't you go down to the office and, well, get busy on that housing bill. They say work's the best thing for what you've got.
Thanks anyway, Glen, but I gotta get away.
Where?
I don't know, just away. I'll be in touch. So long, Glen. Goodbye, Katie. Take care of yourself.
Where are you going?
I'll let you know when I get there.
Mr. Selden is here.
Where is she?
In the living room.
If you've come to gloat and enjoy yourself, I've got it coming.
I've come to show you my column in today's dispatch. Will you read it, please?
This is a little different from what you've been saying. Who changed your mind?
The point is I've been doing some research. And I'm willing to admit my mistake.
Does that go for Congressman Morley, too?
In part. I still don't agree wholeheartedly with his approach, but I do believe his goal is justifiable.
That's too fancy for me. Are you with him or against him?
How can I answer that?
It's very simple. Say yes or no.
When I think he's right, yes. When I think he's wrong, no. One thing's certain. I'll take a long look before I make any judgment. Does that answer your question?
How about dinner?
I'd be delighted.
While Congressman Morley was successful in pushing through the small business bill, this column must part company with him on a home improvement issue. I could be wrong. Perhaps some member of the Morley camp could influence me. What am I going to do with that one?
One ticket on the next flight to St. Paul, Minnesota. Thank you very much. The name? Mr. Chester Cooper. Thank you. You'd better hurry. The plane leaves in 1 hour.
You mean you want me to go way out there just to talk to her?
Who else, Romeo?
I'm on my way.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes, Katie?
what stronger breastplate than a heart untainted? Thrice is the arm that has his quarrel.
Farewell, dear Kate. My crown is in my heart, not on my head.
Katie's a farmer's daughter. You can't resist that gal. She's country style but city design. Got a smile that's sprinkled with sunshine. Look at the farmer's daughter. She'll perk up your morale. Her brand of charm is so disarming. Frowns turn upside down. The old Odette's to Sweden. She's just what we've been needing. So glad the farmer's daughter